What's up, everybody? Jacob Bartley here. One of the hot news topics going around in the world of movies right now, I guess you can call it a rumor, is that Chris Evans may no longer play Captain America, Steve Rogers, after Avengers 4, which comes out next year. That will be the sequel to the upcoming Avengers Infinity War. And even though this isn't official, the hypothetical question comes up of who will wield Captain America's shield after Avengers 4 if he is indeed leaving the MCU. So the reason this all comes up in the first place is because the New York Times released a little scripture from a supposed interview with Chris Evans, and they were talking to Chris Evans, and it wasn't even like a direct quote from Chris Evans. This is just what they had to say about it. For now, he has no plans to return to the franchise. You want to get off the train before they push you off, he said, and expects that planned reshoots in the fall will mark the end of his tenure in the familiar red, white, and blue supersuit. So if you read that quote from the New York Times, you know this is not definitive whatsoever. Chris Evans has talked about leaving the MCU before. He's talked about, if Marvel will have me and we can work out a deal, then let's get it done. That would be great. So none of this is set in stone. It's not even close to set in stone. It's not even something that is probably going to happen, but it's going to be something that everyone's going to be talking about, what happens after he departs, and one of those things has to do with the shield. I mean, it must be. It's a hot topic of conversation. By the way, where is the shield anyway? Why doesn't he have it? We know he left it with Tony at the end of Civil War. Why doesn't he have it in Infinity War? Does he ever get it back? He may never see it again. I personally don't believe that Chris Evans is departing from the MCU anytime soon if it's up to him. If he can get a deal done with Marvel to continue his contract. By the way, the reason this does come up is because his contract ends with Marvel and Disney after Avengers 4. I think Chris Evans will get it done if he has the opportunity to. Whether or not the creative team at Marvel decides to kill Steve Rogers off, that's a different story. That won't be up to Chris Evans. But I do believe as long as Marvel's willing to have him and they're not planning on killing the character off, that he's going to stick around. But it's always fun to speculate. And one of the big questions is who would take on, not necessarily the mantle of Captain America, but the responsibility of carrying that shield and using it. And I'm talking about the original Captain America shield, the one that is in the first Avenger and he used all the way up until Captain America Civil War, the one made out of vibranium from Wakanda, which we see vibranium early on in the MCU. A lot of people don't realize that. But it's a huge question, and there's some obvious answers based on the comics. There's some not so obvious answers. I have a few ideas here, and I'm obviously going to talk about some of the obvious ones first. So let's go with the obvious choice, the most likely choice if they were to do this, and that is James Buchanan Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. Now let's look at some reasons why that would make sense. We've seen the Winter Soldier wield the shield plenty of times already. He caught it in Winter Soldier, which is one of the great moments that they always showed in the trailer. He used it with Captain America in Captain America Civil War to beat up Tony, that epic shot where they're throwing the shield back and forth to each other. So he's familiar with the shield. We've seen him use it plenty of times, so that makes a lot of sense, honestly. And he is Steve's best friend, and they just have been through so much together, and the departure and the return of James Buchanan is huge, and it would make sense for him to want to honor Steve Rogers, whether it's an absence because Captain America decides that he's done fighting and he just leaves, or if the character gets killed off for some reason in Avengers 4 or Avengers Infinity War, whichever the case may be. So that is the obvious choice. It really would make sense, and especially because Bucky's so familiar with that shield. So the next obvious choice is Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon. We saw them meet each other in Captain America Civil War, and they've developed such a strong bond since then. He now has two best friends in Bucky and in Sam, and I think that's great. I think that it really shows how much of a human that Steve is, that he connects with these people in different eras, and how good of a friend he can be, as well as a fellow soldier in these battles. And the reason why Sam Wilson makes a lot of sense, he also has wielded the shield in the comics. He also took on the mantle of Captain America, just like Bucky did in the comics. So we've seen him use the shield. I can't recall a specific time where Sam Wilson has picked up the shield, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. I might have missed it when I was doing some research. But if you remember a time, please let me know in the comment section. But I think it'd be pretty cool to have him kind of do the same thing in Steve's honor, maybe take on that shield. And I don't think any of these situations that whoever uses the shield, they're going to call themselves Captain America. But I do think it would be really cool for them just to honor Steve by just using the shield. So in the comics, Steve kind of loses his ability to stay the same age, and he starts aging and he becomes old man Steve, and he basically loses his powers. And this is when Sam takes on the mantle. I don't think they're going to do that in the MCU. Like I said, I think either Captain America is going to go into hiding and just be done with fighting, or he's going to get killed off, and that would pave the way for Sam Wilson to at least use the shield. How cool would it look to see Sam flying with the Falcon suit and also using the shield and blocking stuff? I think that would be really cool. Maybe he could like attach it to the back of his suit and like pop it up and catch it whenever he needs it. I think that would be awesome. And he is Cap's new best friend. He's still best friends with Bucky, but they kind of got this, this three-way thing going on with their relationship. We kind of saw that teased in Civil War. Bucky and Sam had such great chemistry with them not liking each other, and I think that could continue on in the future. And maybe somehow, if Cap does leave, them two like develop a stronger friendship. I think that would be pretty cool. Now, my unconventional choice, my third option of somebody who could possibly use Cap's shield is Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow. I think this would be cool. When I was trying to think of a third choice, she was the first person that popped in my head. And I kept trying to think of other Avengers, other characters in the MCU. And no one else felt right, aside from Bucky and Sam, than Natasha. Like, it makes so much sense. First of all, a common theme with all of these characters is they all have a strong relationship with Captain America and with Steve Rogers. And that's the same with Natasha Romanoff. I think it would be perfect. Also, like Bucky, we've seen Natasha use the shield several times in the MCU. At least there's two I can think of. In Age of Ultron, when she picks it up with the motorcycle and says, "I'm always picking up after you boys." The famous line that they always use in the trailer. And I believe it was in Winter Soldier when she picks it up and she's using it to block some artillery. So we've seen her pick up the shield. They even have a pop figure with Black Widow holding the shield. When I was doing some research, I came across that. I think that is so cool. I really want to get that pop figure. But other than her close relationship with Steve and the fact that she has wielded it so many times, not so many times, but a couple times she's picked it up, I think it would make sense for her because unlike Bucky, she's not superpowered. She doesn't have superpowers. Without powers, she could probably beat up anyone in the MCU, but she doesn't have powers. And I think in a battle, the least thing she could have is a shield, especially a vibranium shield that can almost deflect anything. I think it would make sense for her to use that to honor Steve, also to protect herself when all these bigger threats are constantly coming on in the MCU. So I do think it would be really cool because of her connection with Cap, because of her experience with the shield, and also because she could actually use the shield. I think Black Widow would be an awesome choice to use the Captain America shield in the future if Chris Evans is done with the character after Avengers 4. Now, out of these three, which one do I want? I think for me, Bucky and Sam using the shield is kind of, like I said, it's expected. It's kind of boring in a way. The idea of Natasha using it excites me. Like, I think that would be really cool. And no matter who uses the shield, I don't think it would be a permanent thing. I think what would happen is, if this hypothetically happened, Steve Rogers would depart, whether by death or just he's done fighting, loses his powers, whatever. That would happen, and then this character, whether it be the next Avengers movie or the next solo movie where they're teaming up with each other, or a solo movie of that character, I think they would just use it for one movie or one battle or one war, whatever the case may be, and then finally they would like hang it up and put it in an Avengers museum or something like that, or it'd be at Avengers, the new Avengers Tower, Avengers Mansion, as kind of like a souvenir. I think that would be pretty cool, because I don't want to see, if that did happen, I wouldn't want to see Natasha have the shield in every movie from now on. I think that would get a little bit tiring, but it would be pretty cool if after Avengers 4, she gets the shield and she uses it in Avengers 4 and then uses it in the next Avengers film or the next movie where she's in a team-up movie or in her own solo movie, and then after that, she kind of hangs it up and retires the shield in honor of Steve Rogers. That would be my number one choice. What about you guys? What do you think? Do you think Bucky, Sam, or Natasha will end up wielding the shield if Chris Evans departs? Do you have a different idea? I can't think of anybody else who would use it because most of the other characters have powers. They don't really need the shield. Like I know Spider-Man has held it, but he's not going to swing around with a shield in his hand. Iron Man doesn't need it. Hulk's not going to use it. Doctor Strange doesn't need it. Black Panther doesn't need it. So I think these three characters make the most sense. And I would love Natasha to use it. I think that would be pretty cool. Let me know in the comment section what your ideas are. What do you think? Who would you give the shield to if Chris Evans does indeed leave? Thank you all for watching this movie. I am Jacob Bartley. This is Apocalypse Movies, where we talk all things film, movie stuff from real fans, if you will. Check us out. Check us out on YouTube right here. Check us out on iTunes. We put our main shows and our podcasts up on there. Talk to you guys later.